One of my favorite ways to dress up my quilts is by adding not only the exterior border, but this interior, but it's a three-dimensional flange. I'm going to teach you how in today's quick tip. Let's get started. I'm going to show you today in the quick tip how to sew on the yellow flange. That's right, this is that three-dimensional border and the outer border in the same stitching. And I do that for a couple of reasons. I firstly do it because I want my flange to look really, really parallel. And the easiest way to get two perfectly sewn lines is to do it once. So basically I fold this edge. The yellow is a 1-inch strip like this. It was 1 inch. It was then folded in half, and it was set into the seam allowance while I captured the blue all at the same time. I stitch on the blue through the yellow with a standard 1/4 inch all the way from the bottom up to the top, and then what we're going to do is we're going to trim this off to make sure that it is the perfect length. So I can do it this way. I've already pressed this open to show you, so I'm going to do it while it's pressed open. And I'm also going to tell you the other reason that I do this, not only for the straightness of that yellow, but also so that when I'm finished pressing this open, you don't see any sewn line that could peek through if I'd stitched the yellow on first and then the blue, because I'm just not that accurate and it doesn't need to be that important. So basically, I want you to address your quilted project by putting on your yellow flange and your blue outer border, or your inner and outer borders, on your long sides first. The reason we do our long sides first when adding borders is mathematically it makes our short side of the project longer. I've just added about 4.5 inches here. So that helps with the math. Let's call this the A side, or the A step. I have both of these on completely. But now what I want to do is I want to add my next blue outer border on, and when it's finished, I don't want any yellow at all in this seam allowance here. So here comes the B side, or the second trick we're going to do. So once again, I have I've prepped out my flange, and even on this one, I've trimmed off any selvage. So this is a clean working edge, and I'm not going to use it quite yet, so it's over my shoulder, ready to be used. I've also cleaned up this blue edge, and I'm going to put it right here, right sides together, and as I go back to the machine right now, I am not going to stitch the yellow in. So we're going to handle this a little bit different on the B side than the A side. I'm going to come in here, I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance set up, and I'm going to take a couple stitches and lock it in. This is going to be a finished seam here. And then I'm sewing towards that first yellow flange, and I'm making sure that even in the seam that it's folded properly. But before I go over the seam, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this flange here, and I'm going to slide it right underneath this yellow flange that's already there. I'm going to fold the blue right back over the top of it, and I'm going to sew that in. And I'm just now making sure that all 4 edges, the blue bottom, the blue top, and the 2 yellow edges, are lined up. And I'm going to sew almost to the very end. Now, as I sew into this last few inches, I'm making sure everything's lined up. And now what I'm going to literally do is I'm going to stop sewing about a 1/2 inch from the needle to where the flange lies. I'm going to take my scissor, I lay my scissor blade right along the edge of the seam allowance between the blue and the yellow fabric. I snip it so it's the perfect length. I tuck it underneath the original. I fold the blue over, and I sew to the very, very end. So I backstitched. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and press it. Of course, you could put your second side on if you wanted to, but I want to show you how this turned out. So I come back in here, and I'm pressing away from the project, but I'm pressing the flange itself down here. Beautiful. And then, of course, The last thing we're gonna need to do here is come back in and lay that cutter on there and trim this off. But I just wanted to point out again, this is how I do it, where I get the flange three-dimensional on the inside, but I never allow it out here in the seam allowance as well. And so I hope you really enjoyed this quick tip. I would love to know what else you would like to learn in the comments below. We'll see you next time at Man Sewing. Thanks for being a Man Sewing fan. It's great to have you out there encouraging me to create fantastic new content. If you've missed any of the videos, we've got links for you here and here. And while you're checking those out, make sure you're subscribed. We don't want you to miss any of the action.